An unusual storm is about to move through the eastern half of the United States as we go through this weekend and into next week, and then it's going to bring the jet stream down behind it. You know what that means? We're going to have some cooler than average air, and it's some of the coolest air of this season so far move in. I've got all the details on the storm, the cool down, and the entire USA weather pattern.
One Nation weather.
Without further ado, let's take a look into the atmosphere about 15 to 20,000 feet up. We're looking at the mid-level jet stream here using the European model, and I think this does a great job of kind of visualizing what is going to go on with the storm into this weekend and early next week, plus the cool air that's going to move in behind it. And what you're looking at right now is the arrows that I just drew out as we go into our Sunday, October 13th of 2024 in the middle of the afternoon. The jet stream already beginning to cut down into at least some parts of the north-central U.S. Anywhere north of those areas, we're already starting to see some cooler air move in as we've got a system moving through the Great Lakes and eventually into the northeast. It's not going to be until we get past this system, though, and into the early to mid part of next week when we really see the entire area that's going to be affected by our cool down behind the storm not only get in on the cool down, but also the drier air. We will have a little bit of rain with that system that I've been talking about. We'll take a look at the precipitation in just a moment, but focusing on this jet stream, you can see that by the time we go towards our Tuesday morning, and especially even as we go into our Wednesday, anywhere from Nebraska all the way down to the Carolinas and points northward, we are seeing the jet stream dive on down. This is the polar jet stream, and that means a cool down will be associated with it, so that's really the discussion I'm going to get deeper into in this video. I wouldn't be doing that without the awesome weather bottle maps that I use from WeatherBell, so if you want to check out the free trial link to them, you can access these maps for yourself too. That is down below in the description. Also available for free to you down below is the subscribe button to me right here on YouTube. I would love to get to 5,500 subscribers within the next few videos, so if you want consistent, accurate, and educational content and you like this one, consider giving that thumbs up and hitting the subscribe button. But anyway, now getting back into the video and really discussing this storm that's going to have the cool air behind it. There's not much of a storm to look at as we go into our Saturday, October 12th of 2024 into the afternoon and evening hours. A little bit of spotty shower coverage already getting going and associated with the low pressure system that's eventually going to form up here near Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Great Lakes. But pretty much 98% of the country is dry. That includes the central U.S., the southeast U.S., most of the northeast. That changes as we go out of our Saturday night and into our early Sunday. Notice Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York getting in on a little bit of rain. Also some rain as the low forms that's going to kind of converge all of this mess back in the upper Midwest. There you go, the piece of energy in the Northeast, the piece of energy moving out of the upper Midwest do begin to converge, heading out of our late Sunday morning. By the end of the Sunday afternoon period and into the Sunday evening time frame, this is what we're looking at around 11 p.m. Sunday, according to this model. From Wisconsin over to the New England states there, including Massachusetts and Rhode Island, looking at some at least scattered showers that could bring some moderate to briefly heavy rain. And then down there into the central Appalachians, even a few thunderstorms possible along that kind of tailing front that you can see moving through West Virginia as well as Kentucky. We'll have to watch for isolated severe weather, mainly in the form of gusty winds out of that. Nothing to be too concerned about. Then our storm, it gets stronger, but it's moving east, and it's beginning to actually, with the strengthening that it's undergoing, pull the jet stream harder, and you can see some of those blue lines up there from Minnesota moving into Illinois as well as Indiana. That kind of indicates that we've got some cooler jet stream flow moving in behind the storm, but I'm drawing the arrows just so you can note already places from Minnesota down into Iowa, and then from places like Indiana down here towards the Carolinas, we're going to start to notice the northwest to southeast wind flow behind this system cranking on up. The gusty winds are going to be even more ferocious. They're coming off the lakes and the Great Lakes region there, so Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, expect some very gusty winds behind this storm. Not only Monday, but even as we go into our Tuesday, yes, we could see a little bit of some snowfall getting going as well into the highest elevations there of the central and northern Appalachians of Vermont, New Hampshire, through central and upstate parts of New York, back into some isolated areas of Pennsylvania and West Virginia as well, but mostly just some scattered showers continuing through around early Wednesday, and then everybody, including the Northeast, is getting in on the cool, dry air behind the storm. Most areas will have already been dried out by that point, though. One last thing to talk about with the storm before we really discuss the temperature side of things, the wind gusts. And as we go into our Sunday, October 13th, that's when they really begin to kick up with that northwest to southeast wind flow I was talking about behind the storm. Out of Minnesota into Iowa, heading out of Wisconsin into northern Illinois, even in some parts of Indiana. That's where the peak wind gusts are expected Sunday afternoon. Some of those gusts pushing up to around 35 to 45 miles per hour. It's not going to be widespread, but there will be some of those isolated gusts into the afternoon hours that peak in that threshold. Most other areas you see in those blue shades on screen, around 20 to 30 miles per hour for peak gusts going into our Sunday afternoon and evening. That will stretch anywhere from the Central Plains over to the Ohio Valley as well as the Mid-Atlantic. And then in terms of the gusts as we go through our Sunday night and heading towards our Monday, They could continue in at least some force with 30-plus mile-per-hour gusts closer to the lakes in the Great Lakes region Sunday night, but they really begin to crank back up for more people as we go into our Monday afternoon. This will include a lot of West Virginia into Pennsylvania and southern New York, even over into New Jersey. Some of those northwest winds really kicking in. There will be multiple days of these 30-plus mile-per-hour gusts in some parts of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. That's Monday. Heading into Tuesday, we'll continue with more of the same in those areas as that storm kind of stalls out just east of Maine and brings in that dip in the jet stream behind it. Here's another visualization of that jet stream in case looking at the model was a little confusing earlier. You can see the jet stream's kind of ridging in the west, so we've got some warmer than average air there, but down in the east we've got that strong dip. So really the threshold line through Minnesota, Iowa, down the Mississippi River, and then over to the southeast. If you're north of that gray line, you are pretty likely going to see some well below average temperatures at some point within the next 5 to 7 days. And let's go ahead and take a look at the temperature setups day by day with my temperature anomaly graphics as we go through this weekend and into next week. This starts off with our October 12th of 2024, which is our Saturday. First of all, much of the country this weekend, as we started anyway, above average. Washington State over into Idaho, 10 to 15 degrees above average. The central U.S., 10, 15, 20 degrees above average. Even the mid-Atlantic, around 5 degrees above normal for this time of the year. Those winds, remember though, they kick up on Sunday the 13th, and then by the time we go into our October 14th on Monday, we've already got cooler spilling in, not just to the upper Midwest, but also into the Great Lakes region, the Ohio Valley, the interior Northeast. Temperatures there in widespread fashion around 10 to 15 degrees below average. Down here over the Gulf Coast corridor, back into the western U.S., we continue to remain warm, but even the Gulf Coast is going to see relief from the warmth, at least in comparison to average for this time of the year. 10 to 15 degrees below average for everyone, really, from Florida all the way up to Maine as we go to the midweek time frame of next week. This is Wednesday, October 16th. The West, though, is going to continue at least baking relatively for this time of the year. Especially as you go up there into Montana and Wyoming. Temperatures 20 degrees above average at that point. Now, I want to go day by day and kind of show you the anomalies that I just did, but with the actual numbers so that you can see what those anomalies I just showed you indicate with our temperatures across the country. And looking at the National Digital Forecast Database projections day by day, starting with our Saturday, October 12th in the morning, you can see that we are looking at a warm country, at least relatively to this time of the year. You know, every time I say warm and cool, it is compared to the normal averages. A pretty warm country as we go, especially up the mid-Mississippi Valley on Saturday morning. Plenty of 50s and 60s pushing as far north as southern Iowa and Illinois. Something that will certainly change by the time we get as early as Monday morning and into Monday afternoon with that front now ahead of the area and pushing east. Here we go into our Saturday afternoon. We're looking at a warm day for millions of Americans. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois. We've got Arkansas, Louisiana into Mississippi, pretty much everyone in these states at least in the 80s, and we're going to see plenty of 90s as well, where you see some of those grayer shades filling the screen. Those boxed high temperatures indicate record maximum highs for this time of the year. Pushing into our Sunday morning, we're going to see a lot more contrast, and you'll see what I mean in just a second here. Already moving out of Texas into Oklahoma, and now sliding as far northeast as southwest Ohio. We're seeing the temperatures in the 60s to start the day, definitely on the warmer than average side, but this is going to be the last day for millions of Americans in the Midwest and Ohio Valley for warmer than average conditions for a little while, because we're going to start to see these 30s already creeping out of the north central plains behind the front. Night by night and day by day, the difference will shift east. Here's Sunday afternoon, still pretty cool for some of the areas in the far north central U.S., but overall, we're not feeling the big difference this front will bring just yet. You'll see that in just a couple of days. Hold on. We've still got mid-80s here in the mid-Atlantic. We've still got mid-80s in the southeast. The entire east central area that's going to cool down is not cool just yet. We've got record highs continuing in Texas. Now we go into our Monday morning and you really start to see the cool down shifting south. We've got the 40s now shifting into some areas of Kansas, Missouri, over to Kentucky, the central Appalachians, over to the New England coastline. And then deeper up here through some of the cooler areas you can see from Nebraska into Iowa, Wisconsin, and into Michigan. This is kind of that freeze line. If you're in this area or north and northwest of it, you are pretty much seeing temperatures at least down as low as 35 degrees for your Monday morning low, and many spots will get down into the 20s up there in North Dakota. That will include places like Bismarck and Minot. We've got Fargo, North Dakota getting in on the chill into our Monday morning. Monday afternoon is not going to be a warm one by any stretch of the imagination. Over a lot of the east, we've got this line really indicating where any points north of it are below 70. Any points north of this line below 60 for a high Monday. And really that line cutting all the way through central Illinois and central Indiana. So Chicago, up there in Fort Wayne, Indiana, we're going to be in the 50s for highs on Monday. and even down there through Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, places like Nashville, we're in the 60s. That's crazy. 10, 15, like I mentioned, degrees below average for this time of the year. Going into another one of our cool mornings, this is as we go into our Tuesday. I think this is going to be the chilliest in Minnesota and Wisconsin in particular, as well as the far northwestern parts of Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. We're going to see some pockets here, especially where we see some of those deeper kind of purplish shades trying to fill in. We're going to see some areas where we could get into the upper teens for lows into our Tuesday morning there, and we cut through the 30s in a lot of the Midwest and Ohio Valley, and then down here to the south. Don't sleep on these numbers because they're still 10 to 15 degrees below average from Oklahoma all the way over to the Carolinas, down through south central Georgia, trying to see some spots get in the 40s Tuesday morning. The chill continues even in the afternoon hours for a lot of the Great Lakes and Northeast, where many interior parts of the Northeast not even getting out of the 40s, plenty of 50s to go around throughout this region too. Wednesday is going to be the last day I want to focus on, starting with the morning. You can see that the cool might be the most widespread that we see all week at this point. I'm drawing a line, and if you're anywhere north of the line or right along it, basically you are at 40 degrees or below for our Wednesday morning low. And look at how far south this line goes. Northern Alabama, North Georgia, the upstate of South Carolina, into western North Carolina, where unfortunately many people don't even have homes to sleep in. It's very unfortunate. Hopefully, shelter is being found in those communities in the wake of Helene, as, like I mentioned, there's not much power, not many homes to go to at this point, as all the flooding. It is going to be a chilly morning for people if they do not have a home on Wednesday morning there. And that second line I just had, north of that line, we're looking at plenty of freezing conditions going into our Wednesday morning. Wednesday afternoon, we start to see a rebound through the Central Plains, and this is going to continue to push east by Thursday going into Friday. Some 60s and 70s filling in for a lot of areas, and this will go as far north as the Dakotas, where we'll even have a few 80s in the southwestern part of South Dakota. And that leads me into the final topic of this video, which is the temperature anomalies a little bit later down the line. This is as we go towards our Friday, October 18th with the GFS model. You can see we've still got some cool air hanging on in the eastern U.S., but we're beginning to see temperatures as much as 20 to 30 degrees above average filling in from Kansas and Nebraska up there to Minnesota and Wisconsin. This is going to be with a ridge, that ridge that you saw in the western part of the jet stream as we go towards early next week with that graphic I showed. This is what's pushing east towards the end of next week, very slowly at that. The places that get into warmer than average conditions in late next week into next weekend are going to hang around with those. Saturday heading into Sunday, continuing with the warmer than average conditions in a lot of the north central tier and moving towards the Great Lakes. Could be a warmer stretch a little bit further down the line for much of the country. I'd love if you'd stay with me as I cover that down the line. I'm sure I'll have another video out at some point, either Sunday or Monday. That will include more of the custom graphics like I had right here in this video that you won't find anywhere else on any other weather channel. I appreciate you watching. Leave any comments down below that you have. Love ya. Have a great start to the weekend, everyone.
One Nation Weather.